I was working at a Bible camp in Wisconsin, Phantom Ranch Bible Camp. I was a camp counselor. And it was a junior high week, and we had an activity all planned for the boys. We had the canoes, and we were gonna start out on I believe it was Upper Phantom. There's two parts of Phantom Lake. There's Upper Phantom and there's Lower Phantom. And we were gonna start at one, we were gonna canoe across, and then there's a little land spit, and we would carry our canoes across and then canoe across the other. It was a beautiful day out. And we had a good plan. Got over, we unloaded the canoes, we parted up everybody. We made sure that in each canoe there was at least one strong person who knew what they were doing as far as handling a canoe. So it was going to be a bit of a journey, but we wanted to make sure that we didn't have someone who was ill-equipped, or to put two people that were ill-equipped in the same boat. So we got everybody partnered up, we get in our canoes, and we start to paddle across the lake. As you know, storms can sometimes come up out of nowhere. And a windstorm decided to come up as we were going across the lake. We were far enough across and the truck and trailer that had dropped us off had already left. We could not turn around. We needed to continue across the lake. The water was obviously getting choppy, and we found the going to be tough. We quickly learned that the easiest way to do it, especially for those of us who maybe only had one strong rower in the canoe, was we had to turn the canoe backwards and paddle backwards, because we could get more strength and effort going backwards than we could trying to go forwards. And we eventually got ourselves to that spit of land that divided the two lakes. And once there, we were able to get the call out that we needed help. They needed to come and get us. There was a way to be able to pick us up at that spit of land. But obviously, the other people that were back at the camp, they saw the storm, they saw the wind that was coming. Thankfully, there was no rain. But obviously, there was great concern for everyone's well-being and safety. You know, we've seen in the news in the last year, the duck boat tragedy, that happened out on the lake down in Branson, Missouri, and how storms can come up and, people have lost their lives. My college roommate's brother lost his life in a canoe accident. And it happens. But we got out and we were safe. A lot of times we can have some well thought out plans for life. And we would put it out and everybody would go, yeah, hey, that's a great idea. You've got all your, everything's in order, and that's a good idea. And then a storm comes in. Sometimes it's a literal storm. I mean, obviously the people down in Florida and Georgia and the Carolinas, again, have experienced a literal storm that has taken hold of their lives and turned life upside down. But we know that other storms come into our lives as well, whether it be illness or various crises, loss of job. How do we get through those? Matthew chapter 8. I want to invite you to turn in your Bibles. Matthew chapter 8. Verses 23 through 27. Because we're going to see here with Jesus and his disciples what gets us through these storms. Now when he got into a boat, his disciples followed him, and suddenly a great tempest arose on the sea, so that the boat was covered with the waves, but he was asleep. Then his disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, "Lord, save us, we are perishing." But he said to them, "Why are you fearful, O you of little faith?" Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. So the men marveled, saying, "Who can this be, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" You see, the first thing we see here is that the storms are real. This is a real story. It really happened. They were out on the water. The lake was known because of the hills that were around it for the winds to come down the hills. And as they would come down the hills, they would pick up speed. And then they would hit the lake. And what was once just a beautiful, nice, serene time, peaceful out on the water, could all of a sudden turn into a very precarious, life-threatening situation. It was a regular occurrence. Everybody knew that could happen. And even experienced boaters today know that if you get out on the lake, and there are certain lakes that are more known for that than others, that you need to be watching what's going on with the weather. And even if it looks good, you still need to be prepared for a storm. But the storm is real, and the storms are going to come. Jesus told us that we will have trouble in this world. He said, if they persecute me, they're going to persecute you as well. We recall the words from the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. But we get to about the middle part of that psalm, and we read, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for your rod and your staff, they comfort me." But when you look at that first part of that verse, you're walking through what is a very difficult, trying time. The valley of the shadow of death. Now keep in mind, that's a shadow. Shadows cause no harm. They might block out the light for a little bit. But as you continue to walk through the valley, you eventually come out of the shadows into the light. But it's that reminder there that you're going to face these things. You're going to have some difficult challenges. The disciples are being tested by a very powerful storm. We can all probably attest to times where we have had very trying storms in our lives. The storms are real. How are we going to respond? See, in the storms, it's easy to forget that God is in the storm. Sometimes people can be quick to say, all you just need to do is remember the presence of God. You need the manifest presence of God in your life. Can I just say right now, there is some value in that statement, but the disciples, they had the presence of God with them. Jesus was literally there. And yet they still had some issues. But it's remembering that God is in the storm. He has authority over it. Psalm 89:9 says, "You rule the raging of the sea. When its waves rise, you still them." Job 38, verses 8 through 11, "Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? When I made clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed limits for it, and set bars and doors, and said, thus far shall you come and no farther, and here shall your proud waves be stayed." The storms come into our lives. They're there by God's allowing, by God's doing. James tells us that we're to consider pure joy when we endure trials. Why is that? because we're being refined. This surely was a refining moment for the disciples. They probably didn't think so at the time, and none of us do when we're in the midst of a storm. We find it very difficult to say, hey, woo-hoo, bring it on, I'd like another. Because I can honestly say right now that I want the storms to stop. I've had enough. I've had 3 different trips to the hospital this week. I've had enough. Yet I will praise him. You see, the disciples, they did one thing right. They called out to God. And when we're in the midst of storms, we are reminded of our need to call out to him. But before they did, notice that there was some worry and some fear in their lives. It wasn't that they were calling out and showing great faith and trust in Jesus. They were calling out because they were afraid they were all going to die. Jesus included. How quickly they had forgotten that this is God in the flesh. We're only in Matthew chapter 8. There's another 20 chapters in the book of Matthew. So we know that this is still very early on in Jesus' ministry, but still there had been enough that had taken place for them to know that this was the Messiah. That's part of why they were drawn to him. That's part of why they were following him. And here they are, afraid, filled with worry. And I came across a quote, so bear with me here. It's a quote from Francis Chan. He writes this: worry implies that we don't quite trust that God is big enough, powerful enough, or loving enough to take care of what's happening in our lives. You see, the disciples were in the storm, in the boat, with Jesus. The presence of God. They had God in the flesh. Right there, they could reach out and touch him. They could see him. And yet worry and fear overcame their lives. When we start to worry, we are exhibiting a lack of faith and trust in God. And there's a difference between worry and concern. We can be concerned about things because when we're concerned about something, then we start to set out a course of action to overcome. And the course of action rightly begins with calling out to God. Lord, save me! But worry is wrapped up in looking at the storm and not being able to see the way out. Concern sees the way out and how to get out. So do you see the difference between worry and concern? And how worry demonstrates that lack of faith. Because that lack of faith gets called out, right? We look at what Jesus said. He goes, woe, you of little faith. Now, the rebuke there isn't because they didn't trust Jesus to get them out of the storm. Yes, they had witnessed enough things that they knew that Jesus could get them out of that. But their lack of faith was because they weren't trusting in God's overall plan. They thought that somehow this storm was going to derail God's plan. Jesus' time had not yet come. Jesus knew that there wasn't going to be anything that was going to keep him away from the cross. No storm, no angry mob. There's a time later in his ministry where he is at the temple, and The mob was gathered ready to take him at that time. And it says that all of a sudden he was gone from there because his time had not yet come. When we're in the storms of life, whatever it is, sometimes we can lose sight of God's overall plan. And we might begin to think that somehow God's plan is going to get thwarted because of this storm. I certainly could have thrown my hands up this week and said, I give up. I'm done. Walk away. But I would be giving in to that thought that somehow God was not able to fulfill his plan in my life. Jesus was going to certainly fulfill his plan, and this little storm was not going to stop that. When we encounter these storms, like I said, our natural inclination, just like the disciples here, is to worry. How do we overcome worry? I just give you a few things, a few verses from Scripture, because we have certainly been looking at these a lot this week. Matthew 11:28-30. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. Psalm 55:22. Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. Oh, I have bedded down in that verse this week. I'm not going to be shaken. Why? Because the Lord is sustaining me. The Lord is sustaining me. First Peter 5:6-8. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. See, if we allow our minds to be consumed by worry and fear and anxiety, the enemy will devour us. Those things devour our mind. Jesus said that Satan comes to rob, to kill, to destroy. And that's where fear and worry and anxiety come from. That's why Paul wrote to Timothy that God has not given you a spirit of fear and of timidity, but one of power and love and of a sound mind. So where does fear come from? Satan himself. So when I face these storms and I start to have fear and worry and anxiety, I can recognize it for what it is. It is a tool of Satan himself, meant for nothing more than to destroy me. So if I start to recognize his tools, then I can start to fight back. Not on my own strength. Just look at the disciples. Here's where you at least got to give them some credit. Remember how we cast aspersions on Thomas and say, oh, Thomas doubted because he had to put his fingers into the hands and side of Jesus. We call him Doubting Thomas. And we fail to forget that after he did that, he proclaimed, my Lord and my God. And Thomas went on to be a missionary and martyr in India. And the gospel thrives in India, yes, under persecution, great persecution. But it is there because of Thomas. His doubt was turned into a devout belief that was not going to be shaken. But the disciples knew to call out, Lord, save us. What can we do when we are in the midst of a storm? But to call out, Lord, save me. Lord, I need you. We have called that out many, many times this week. Many times throughout our lives. But especially this week, especially these last 2 months. Lord, we need your help. Lord, save us. And we know that he is going to, because what happened? He arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. If you look at the parallel passage in Mark chapter 4, verse 39, Jesus spoke to the wind and to the sea, and he said, peace, be still. To the storms that we face in life, Jesus says, peace, be still. Now, I want to say that our faith and our trust is in the one whose name is Prince of Peace. Our faith and our trust is not in the presence of peace. Our faith and our trust is there even when there is no peace. But we know that God will see us through. He will deliver. We are called simply to trust in him. I'm grateful for timely words that people will speak into me and bless me with, and I received a timely word this morning. That someone said, I thought of you and shared this. Because this is a good reminder. So how do we not get blown over in these storms? Jeremiah 17, verses 7 and 8. Blessed is the man who trusted the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. He is like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots by the stream and does not fear when heat comes, for it leaves remain green, and is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit. And it was a devotional by Lisa Turkhurst. But it was about that need to develop deep roots. How do we develop deep roots? We develop them in the drought seasons, when the roots have to go searching for water that is deeper than what is right above the surface. The strongest trees are the trees that have the deepest root systems. If you've ever seen the video of people trying to remove stumps and you're going, man, how is it that they can't get this stump out? They have some powerful tractors hooked up to it. And you see them fight and tug and pull. They've even dug out around the stump. It's because that tree had a deep root system. And we need to, in our own lives, develop that deep root system that is rooted in God. A faith that is unwavering, that is unshakable. Perhaps today you are experiencing a storm of one form or another. I don't know, I know I am. I'm facing 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 different storms right now. And to those storms that you're facing, that I'm facing, Jesus says, peace. Peace. Read this verse again, we'll close. John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. Peace. Father, thank you for your peace. Thank you for your presence in our lives. Father, may we not lose sight of your plans that you have for us. May we not lose sight of your overall plans in the scheme of world history. Neither man nor his schemes will derail your plan, which is to bring your Son back in glory and honor and power. That plan is not going to be thwarted by man or any political system. Nor is your plan for each of our own individual lives. So, Father, may we trust you in those plans, that you will fulfill them. Father, as we experience storms in life, may we call out to you in a call that says, I trust you because I have seen you and your faithfulness in the past, and I know you're going to do it again here today, and I know that your plans will not be thwarted, so that it is a cry out from trust. Father, we pray against worry and fear and anxiety. We call them out as the tools of Satan. And we say, no more. Remove those by the power of your Son, Jesus Christ. Father, cleanse our minds by your blood, so that we will not have that anymore. And Father, deepen our roots. Deepen our roots in you, that we will be able to stand and stand firm. We pray this in the powerful name of Jesus, the Prince of Peace.